when it came to our transition. And as I think back about that time period, the most overwhelming part of it for us was the idea of telling our children. I remember my husband and I would spend nights in our bed late at night just crying, feeling so heartbroken and so overwhelmed and so betrayed and so furious that we had to tell our kids something that we knew would break their little hearts. I even remember crying so hard that it became difficult to breathe. And I remember saying to Cody some nights, I didn't even know it was possible to cry so hard that you couldn't breathe. So that maybe sounds dramatic, and it was really dramatic, and it was really traumatic for us. And so while there's a variety of different scenarios that you at home who are listening might be in, you might be in a split faith marriage, you might be a single parent, your kids are of various ages. What I'm going to offer today on this video is how we did it and how it worked for us in a two-parent home when we were both pretty much on the same page. In another video, I'll offer a different scenario when a couple is in a split faith scenario. So if you've seen our Mormon Stories interview, you'll know that initially our oldest daughter, Brinley, found out in an unexpected way prior to what I'm going to share today. But what I'm going to share today is when we sat down with all the kids, kind of what we said and just how it went. So basically, we gathered the kids together. I still remember it like it was yesterday. We sat on the floor in a circle, and this is what we said. Mom and Dad have learned some new things about the church that we didn't know before. This has felt really hard and sad, and we've been worried as we've considered talking to you about this. We're not sure right now what this is going to mean for our family moving forward. But the most important thing for everybody to know is that we want to create a safe place where everybody can share their feelings and express themselves openly. We talked to them about the word differentiation. We said differentiation means that we're all going to think and feel and experience things differently. And that is certainly going to happen as we move into this experience together as a family. And it's important that we all support one another in our individual experiences and thoughts and feelings. We talked about how it might look differently as far as church attendance. Some people might really feel strongly that they still want to go, and that is important that we would all support and honor that decision, and that a parent would always go with them. Sometimes it might mean that we're feeling extra sad and that we might be a little bit more emotional than we have been at other times as a family. And so that's really the foundation that we set in that first conversation. Now, our kids really wanted to know, what does this mean? What do you believe? What don't you believe? They wanted to know specifics. And for some great ideas of age-appropriate ways to talk to your kids specifically through the transition, please, please, please see the Mormon Transitions podcast. That is under the Mormon Stories podcast umbrella, and I cannot tell you how helpful those podcasts were for us in preparing to have this conversation with our kids. From there, the older kids did have some additional questions, and we answered those on a very high level. Some of the basic pillars of the problems. And those can be found in either the letter to my wife, the CES letter, or the church essays right on the church website. So we did initially discuss some of those things with the older kids, while the younger kids, honestly, were pretty okay. They weren't rocked quite as much as the older girls. So in that initial conversation, we really tried to focus on the world isn't ending, even though in our hearts we sort of felt like it was. We wanted to focus on the fact that we were going to be okay, that we were going to take our time, that everybody's individual experience was going to be honored, that we were not going to force them to think or believe or choose any certain path or any certain way, that we wanted to offer the time and we wanted to offer the space in a safe way for each person in our family to experience this, to learn and grow in this kind of new space, in this new way as we move forward without any time-bound limits, without any expectations, giving ourselves a lot of grace and compassion. And it was a beautiful thing to observe that I think really for the first time, Cody, my husband, was able to open up in such a vulnerable way. And he shed so many tears that day. And I observed these little kiddos, just their hearts opening up to him and his heart opening up to them. And I felt that as well. And so if you're in a place where you're just so frightened, which may or may not be the case, but it was for us, if you're in that place, I want to reassure you that while this might be the most difficult thing you open up to your kids about, for us it was like the most difficult conversation we had ever had with our kids. It can also serve as a huge shifting spot where you grow into deeper connection, greater vulnerability, and where you begin to cultivate this beautifully differentiated, safe environment. It can actually be the turning point into a healthier relationship with your children and within your family and within your home. So take courage, take hope that while it feels overwhelming and maybe sad right now, as I look back, I can sort of pinpoint that that's when the dynamics in our home started shifting into what I would consider a much more healthy, a much more grounded, a much more connected, calm, peaceful, healthy home environment. So that's all for this video. I'm going to be talking a lot more about sort of specific conversations, and you'll hear from my kids in upcoming videos about how they experience that conversation and other conversations that we've had about traditions, about spirituality, about prayers, about family rituals moving forward. So if you're finding some value in these videos, please subscribe below and you'll continue to be able to see the content that I'm putting out. I hope this helps.